I think Sarah's on her way.
I'm just sending them the. Well, I just not gonna be very long today, so.
No. All right, calling this meeting to order. First, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Motion from Holly, second from Austin. Is there anyone who objects to approving the minutes? Going once, going twice, seeing none, the minutes are approved. All right, next item on our agenda is approval of time-sensitive funding legislation under Title III, Article 1, Section 6.2A. So basically, under this clause of the Constitution, we would be approving this legislation of a crucial and time-sensitive matter because Rights was not allowed to see this legislation on Wednesday due to reaching a lack of quorum at their weekly meeting.
Motion to approve.
On the minutes, it wasn't Wright's fault. I just want to put that out there.
It was not.
Not the fault of Wright, but second.
All right, and that would be to approve both pieces of legislation
Yes.
to go through the Student Assembly. All right, perfect. So who did the first
Me.
motion? Holly, second from Sadie. All right, is there anyone who objects to moving this legislation forward to the Student Assembly? All right, seeing none, the motion is passed. All right, so now we'll move on to the next item on our regular agenda here, which is approval of the attached Cycle 11 Students Assembly agenda. As it stands now, for March 8th, we have our call to order, approval of the minutes. We do not have a guest speaker for that meeting. For our officer reports, we have the president, vice president, grad president, treasurer, and government relations director. I figured since after the big conference, there probably needs to be a presentation there. On the consent agenda, we have Bill 69, 71, and 72, which are consent agenda items. And then we have on our regular agenda, the Per Campus Bill, which requires a 2/3 motion to suspend the rules in its current form, and Bill 60 to reduce duplication and organized funding rights. Other than that, nothing else.
Can I, with Madison, be the guest speaker? Just to go over, and I have 5 minutes,
Mm,
our changes. For president and vice president,
yeah,
'Cause we have to.
well, we could just extend your officer report at that point.
Yeah, just give
I
you
think
a.
it should have its own thing.
I think it's its own thing,
It's
Mm,
not like an officer report. It's
you
like,
know,
Yeah.
it's like a,
Motion to approve that idea. Oh, I need a second though.
Second from Angela. And any objections to adding Sadie as the guest speaker at the meeting?
No,
That's
it's transparent.
for everyone, and most, I think, well, I don't know, I didn't know this is that, for us and so so with the hour changes that were passed in B, basically all exec staff got lowered and things like that. The only exceptions were president, vice president, and treasurer were maintained at 29 hours and 29 hours a week for the academic semesters. They were all lowered for the summer and winter semesters. But for the academic semester, they stayed at 29 hours. And so this has been an ongoing conversation for about like a year now of if 29 hours is ethical, if 29 hours is like honestly like what we should be doing. It's like it's been an exemption from HR to allow students to work 29 hours. Because it's a cap is 10 or 20 for university positions for students. And like students that got the exemption a long time ago, like a decade ago, that they were like, you guys work way over 20 hours, did you get compensated fairly, whatever. But the problem with 20 hours is, or 29 hours, is no other students on campus can work 29 hours a week. International students can't work over 20 hours a week. So
That's
but-
why mine was at 29 and I got it lowered to 20 because I'm technically not allowed to do that. So we-
And then beyond that too, it creates an unrealistic expectation in terms of what is a balanceable level of work with being a full-time student. And so realistically, any student should be able to pursue those opportunities, but if you're not taking like less than like 15 credit hours, it's honestly impossible. Like, just trust me on that one. And part of that is because like when your salary is 29 hours a week, you should be able to do that. And it usually ends up being more than. Anyways, so with the introduction of the speaker to senate position and the judicial position, like there's gonna be like a huge division of all those responsibilities and things like that. So it's gonna be spread out over like 4 people as opposed to what it kind of is now, where it's held down to 2 people. And so those positions are all gonna be 20 hours over the academic years, starting this fall. And so that is like a mix of like the rational things alongside that. The reason why it's not getting presented to Senate as a voting matter is because HR, it just made it easy and just removed the exemption. So we're not allowed to do it anymore either. And so that's why it's not getting voted on, but we're just gonna be transparent, like, here's where it's coming from. It's like, there's also like the a mix of the long conversation of like university administration being on the same page. And then also HR being like, yeah, we shouldn't do this anymore. It's not best practice. Also, we're not sure if it was legal. So that's kind of the.
Yay, for not being sure if it was.
Yeah, there's so many things. So yeah. Oh, we have a question. This is starting in FY 24 to 24. So don't worry.
Danae, did you have something?
Not about this.
Okay, Sadie, how many minutes do you think that guest speakership will take? Like
Fine.
5
We
minutes?
need to do 10 per question. 10 per question.
Five for the speed. and 10. Okay.
This will be much prettier when it gets. to the
Oh,
final
no worries.
version.
It'll be meeting Madison because Senate advisors were like. It's unified. It's a unified vote.
I mean, the assembly doesn't have a choice. If HR says it's the rules.
That's the thing, it's like ultimately, it's like, yes, it tracks and it aligns, I think, with the direction that Susan is going with anyway. But
Well, and so-
ultimately, it's not. our fault.
I think people don't want to be, us to be paid that much.
No,
So
and this is like
very-
too, like. This needs to be less tricky.
It's not really that, like, to be honest,
This, were you, B? Okay, yeah, in B, we talked about this a lot last year in B, and I just. Did it cut last year, so,
Yeah, it was like commanded.
yes, yeah.
They
But
try and
so-
get us to 15.
He tried to get us to 15 numbers an hour and then bump basically every position up to 20 or 25.
I don't, that's what this is saying.
And so that was like, so we readjusted hours last year and then it didn't end up being because there wasn't any. But there wasn't any like legislation that followed.
And
So this is a chance like actually like makes it accessible.
I would just say that the thing that I think is the problem is that people are still gonna be overworked in those top 5 positions.
No.
So they're gonna be paid less. And they're still gonna be working more, which is a problem. It's like, and even though there's gonna be another position to put hours into, I still bet you that the president and vice president will work more than 20 hours a day.
I think-
Unless they put a hard line on it, which then people could just be like, oh, you're not doing enough, and then it's a proof that they won't.
Yeah, so I think that's why too, is after this. Cause there's not really anything we can do, the cute thing. So we can do any preparations for it. But we can like be reactive now, and I think pass legislation that clarifies what exactly the responsibilities are, because right now, those responsibilities for the supervisor president and vice president are actually pretty short. But it ends up being
Really long.
an insane amount of work, it's like you just do everything. Not everything, but you know what I mean, like, you just have your hands in a lot of different pots, like everyone's not like to do that.
Mm.
But you know what I mean, like you end up doing a lot of different things that aren't on that list, and so actually codifying what is their responsibility and what's there. And so also with that, for that,
All the positions.
with all of our positions, we're gonna do that, and we're also gonna have a really robust turnover process. Which should help in that effort as well, so that way whenever we turn over, the next people will know exactly what they're gonna do. So we're gonna try, hopefully,
No, I know, I can just,
but yeah, I know.
well, it depends if you're really, if the person's really dedicated to the role. I'm sure there's people that haven't.
Yeah, that's true. There are senior persons who probably work 40 hours a week. And there's persons who probably work 10. And so,
Well, and at the end of the day, in terms of like financial approval, they all proved to be cognizant of the cuts that were going to be made during the executive branch, and so I feel like in that sense, they did sort of like soft approve a transition into this,
yeah,
you know.
that's more where I goes.
It's not like we're, she's like saying, that it's not like we're increasing now. It's not like we're increasing. I don't think anyone's gonna object to it.
I think the problem is gonna be next year though, when people see a difference because. You're like, I mean, I'm never gonna work more hours, well, I do, that's the one, but like, I'm trying not to work more hours than I'm paid for, and then people next year. Could be like, oh, the student body president's not doing enough because they're only working 20 hours a week, and if Senate goes 5 hours one night, that's. A quarter of the hours you can work in a week, if you have to also attend university senate, university senate executive committee, you add all those things up, there's like barely one student.
That's the problem.
Or maybe you increase the wage. You want them to-
I'm not saying.
Is it okay?
But the-
Or-
but then-
Hours.
But I think then with the drop problem that you get to, and what I would already do, if this was maybe that was the competition, is then you're being weighted disproportionately against every other student in the university, and if you're supposed to be representative, when you, of those students, you should probably be getting paid the same wage as your average student. Because otherwise, you're saying your time is more valuable,
And it's,
and that's just the truth of it.
Frankly, everyone's time is more valuable than the university pays us, but
true.
at the end of the day, this isn't a conversation we're here to have. We're just having the conversation on the guest speaker.
Yeah.
So, yeah, with that amendment, do we
Motion
have
to
the
approve.
minutes from finance yet? Okay.
Also, where is him?
I don't know, he was at, you at, so I'm not sure.
Okay. Cause yeah, we can approve this agenda sort of like here in this meeting, but we've still not received the minutes from finance to actually approve all the legislation for the agenda. And so,
Has anyone reached out to him?
Well, I know what those passed, I know what those passed.
well, that's the thing, we just don't have the documentation.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I mean, we
it's a
can.
little superfluous.
We can pass this like agenda at this meeting. I think it's just that with the context that if we don't receive
Yes.
those minutes over the weekend. Then we cannot send out the agenda on like Monday or Tuesday without those documentations, sort of like backing the claims of this.
Okay, motion to approve that.
Yeah.
All right, motion from Holly, second from Austin. Do we have any objections to approving this agenda? All right, seeing none, that way passes. And just for a record of like the voting members who are on this meeting, we have Austin Chris, Janae Espadine, Holly Paul, Angela Davis, and Sadie Williams, and Giuseppe Kansu. All right, correct. That's every voting member that I could think of, correct? Perfect.
Six, what is?
Quorum is 5.
Oh,
So we're
stunning.
good on that. All right, motion to adjourn or any announcements before we adjourn?
I just had a question.
Yeah.
Why does her campus bill need to, what do you call it?
Need the two.
Oh, need the
Yeah.
2/3 motion to suspend rules.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, just because we can't fund the whole apps
Yeah.
without suspending the rules.
right.
However, someone needs to talk to the full Senate about consistently suspending the rules, because I think it's really problematic.
So we actually had a brief conversation this morning with, that I had with Madison.
We can maybe have the conversation after we adjourn too.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn from Holly, second from Sadie. Any objections?
No.